The High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nichole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.
Good morning, everybody. MJ BizCon has gotten the best of almost all of our squad, and we
best of all the men.
Yeah, it's gotten the best of all the men. It's a two-woman show. Maybe J Beck will show up. Not sure. But this morning, we have a lot of fun news that will cover everyone else's story, I guess. But I just wanted to say thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us every morning. It's Thursday, November 17th, which is National Great American Smokeout, National Unfriend Day, National Testosterone Awareness Day, as well as World Premature Day. I wonder if they go together. We're also thankful for you tuning in to us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. We have some correspondents from basically just me and Gretchen want to participate in this forum. I don't even think you could come in on Clubhouse because Jason's the one that normally does that. So real sorry to all of our Clubhouse fam not able to get on today. Hopefully you find us here on YouTube. Do us a solid and hit that subscribe button, share for us on your favorite social media platform, and tell a friend about something cool that you learned today here on the show. We're live every Monday through Friday on YouTube and Twitch, and audio only on Clubhouse, except today. If you're on Clubhouse, well, I'm sorry. So let's keep the banter going in the YouTube chat box. We have a great show for you today. I think we'll do good. We might be a little short on time, but let's see some important topics from around the globe. But first, let's pay some bills so that we can maybe figure out how to get some new people on our show.
At True Classic OG, we live by one motto: stay true. We stay true to our legacy cut of True OG. That's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit, hustle, and diversity of our great city of angels. And we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what's made us LA's favorite OG. True Classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles.
Yay. And we got another woman on the stage. Dr. Mary, good morning. Yes.
Good morning, Dr. Mary.
But first up, yeah.
Good morning. We're all taking it easy during MJ Biz. It's like you just have to sort of get yourself barely out of bed at this point.
I considered doing the show from bed, but I didn't have good enough lighting. And also, I've already had too many weird strangers in my bed over my life, so I figured this was going to be just a little bit too much for my week. You know, MJ BizCon really turned it up, doing a whole lot in my room. But up first, we have Gretchen Gailey. Gretchen is the founder of Panoptic Strategies, our Washington insider, and a boss-ass lady that managed to drag herself out of bed this morning and get herself dolled up, even in her towel. Gretchen, what do you have for us today?
Good morning, Nichole. I don't know how y'all do this every morning at 9 a.m. I just cannot. But here I am. My headline is coming from Marijuana Moment. White House.
Your sound is getting weird.
Again?
Yeah.
What the F? Do I have to do the nutshell again? Do you want a nutshell? Do you hear me?
There we go. You're better.
Does it work? I'll try again.
Yep. That sounds a little better. Yeah.
Okay,
Take
I
another
won't
shot
move.
at it.
White House touts Biden's marijuana pardons among top accomplishments for administration. Are we still good?
Yeah, you're still sounding a little robotic or something.
Oh, son of a bitch. Anyway.
Son of a bitch.
I
maybe I should go and you can sign out and sign back in and see if it helps.
It's not going to help. The Marriott stinks.
Oh wait, you're better. You're
All right.
sounding better.
Apparently, when I pull up my story, I think that sends my computer into a tailspin. So basically, the White House administration yesterday came out and touted all their major accomplishments of this administration. And one of them they listed was their wonderful pardons for federal cannabis convictions. I think it's a sad, sad day when Biden touts that pardon as a major accomplishment of his administration, but we won't get into that. They say they want to keep moving forward and doing stuff. We shall see. I don't think Biden understands at all the first step in moving forward this industry. For them to come out and put this as a top accomplishment is a good thing. It puts another spotlight on cannabis and shows that he has done something, and this is how he is going to placate voters in 2 years to say he did something for cannabis. I don't know. I think it's ridiculous that he keeps touting these pardons as the greatest thing ever. If Jason Beck were here, he would be saying that mass pardons are down the road, and he wouldn't be giving me any money. So we'll see what comes of this, but I just don't get it. I understand that they're trying to pretend that they didn't start the war on drugs so many years ago. But we're not buying it. So, yay, Joe Biden, top accomplishment, woo, which doesn't mean shit.
It is nice that something is getting done, that people are talking about it. And, I got lambasted a few weeks ago for saying that, he at least he didn't create. And then I think everybody took that comment wrong. But, 35 years ago, really, really bad things happening, and people were getting under a tremendous amount of fire and a huge amount of punishment for these things. And now that's at least we're discussing it and considering decreasing it. And I think it's a step forward, even if it isn't a massive step forward and it really didn't accomplish that much. I'm so pleased that we're not adding on to all of the stupidity that we brought to the stage 35 years ago,
Right. I mean, everything is a step. Washington moves so slowly, and this is just another example of how slowly that they move. But it also shows their political gamemanship, trying to pretend that this actually meant something. I mean, if Biden really wanted to do more, he would put some effort behind the states. He would pass something like the HOPE Act. He would say, Congress, let's act on this. Let's actually get people out of jail. That's what
then you have to figure out who to put in all those jail spots, because there's a lot of people that are making money on the private prison system. So who goes in there now if we get rid of all these cannabis people?
I could come up with a few candidates.
Who would you put in there?
There's plenty of people breaking the law all over this country. I mean, come on. Why do they have to go to jail for cannabis?
You don't want to catch any of the white collar criminals because nobody wants to put them in jail.
I mean, if Jason were here, he would sign a Hunter in a heartbeat.
What about, the fentanyl epidemic, the amount of people that we could be going after for fentanyl?
Why aren't we doing that?
That is, I would imagine the pharmaceutical industry is too closely tied in, because fentanyl does actually have a place in pharma. And perhaps I would see that as being one of the things, like early on when cannabis legalization first happened in California, all the doctors that were giving Rex and giving Rex. And there was people that were like, oh my God, this is just an abuse of the system. And I'm like, well, if it is, you'd have to come after the people that are doing it for opioids too. You know what I mean? If you were like mad that doctors are just writing scripts for weed, in order to be mad and attack and address that, you'd have to address the issue, the bigger issue, which is the pharma industry just being like, oh, you need a fucking Xanax, you need a Vicodin, you need an oxycodone. Let me just write you a script. And so, when I look at the longevity of what's happening, I'd say that, Dr. Mary, you are right that it's good that we're talking about it, but I completely agree with Gretchen and everyone that's like, this isn't shit. And, I'm sad Rico's not here to tout as a felon, in the interaction of what this actually means to me. My felony is a distribution charges from being a vice president of a corporation. Okay, so in my mind, I'm going to be real. Like, I would be like, fuck, I think I should be one of the people that would be considered in a situation like this, where it's like an easily expunged situation where they're like, hey, it's legal. Why are we doing this? But in the end, I got my crimes in the middle of legalization, right? In a state that was legal. And so there's just so many different angles. The idea of it being possession, and everyone will say this over and over again, nobody goes to federal prison for possession. Like, no one.
Right.
That's no one.
And the other thing that people are seeming to forget is that this action that he did was only on that day. If you committed this crime the next week, you're going back to jail. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
The
it really
pardons
is.
don't look
It's
into
such
the
a
future.
small and really insignificant and virtually irrelevant thing that it did, except for it didn't make it worse, and it finally brought a conversation forward that got people thinking, like, how many people are actually in jail for simple possession? And if it didn't make a difference, then how do we get people out and reunite families and help build neighborhoods back? Those are all questions that I just don't think people really understand exactly how many people are still in prison for, because they did this add-on stuff that everybody put together so many years ago, with three strikes or just creating a much longer sentence than was ever necessary for so many people, and then privatizing the jails. I mean, it's like having the jail system reflect what we really think about who should be jailed is a lot like, if the stock market actually reflects what's going on in the economy. I mean, the jail system is just designed to help rich people get richer.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a little bit like, every time I hear something like this, I'm a little bit excited at first. Like, I remember when the pardons conversation happened, I was at Hall of Flowers, I was in the little center area, and everyone's phones just starts blowing up, right? Like, as a felon, I get excited in moments like this because I'm hopeful. You know what I mean? I'm like, let me research it. So I'm on my phone and I'm like, wait, what are they saying? And like, people don't really understand a lot of the political and technical legal terms that they use half the time. And so they're throwing out all these words and they're like, he decriminalized weed and like all this shit. And I'm like, wait, hold on. And so I go to my phone and I just start like reading everything that I can. And within like 30 minutes, I am literally Debbie Downer in this fucking smoke circle of all my friends. And I'm like, the world
Debbie Downer.
Oh, instantly. I'm like, nah, bitches, this is not what it sounds like. And they like announced it on the thing at Hall of Flowers. They're like, in a world announcement, this is President Biden announces that he's going to pardon all cannabis criminals. And it was like, the way they said it, it sounded like it was going to be much bigger than it was. And everyone's like,
well, and that's another question I have. Like, what if with this, global war on drugs, what happens if we do an immediate expungement, an immediate legalization, a descheduling? Let's say that we do that. What happens with our relationships with other countries that are still warring on cannabis?
But
I mean, don't we have some relationships?
So much of that is based on our policies. So many other countries
are
basing their policies off of us. And so if we change that,
we pushed them to and made our aid dependent on it and everything. So if we do that, then how do we have to change a lot of those rules too? Now
it's going to be a giant dumpster fire, Dr. Mary, if they were to take that action. I mean, a lot of things have to go into place. As much as we hate it, a lot of things have to happen before any type of real descheduling, rescheduling, any type of change really happens to the law. A lot has to go down. And there's so many different agencies that would be in play. It would be a disaster. I know that people don't want to hear that. They're going to be like, yay, we're legal. Well, it's going to be a shit show the moment that happens.
Total descheduling is truly on an international level, on local levels, on everything. The tax.
I was able to I'm sorry. I was able to bring up the story on my phone, and this is the one line that drives me nuts. Vice President Kamala Harris said last month that voters should elect lawmakers who support marijuana reform so that Congress can enact a uniform approach to the issue in light of the president's cannabis pardons.
Kamala said that?
Kamala said that.
Kamala's speaking out of this side of her fucking head saying that.
I mean, if that doesn't say October surprise just so you'll vote for us, I don't know what does. I mean, this is insane.
Did you see the article?
Did you see me just spill my tea?
Did you see the article that came out the other day about Newsom to replace Kamala? That they threw it in Discord, and I was like, wait, what? Like, is that? Can you do that? Can you just like kick your vice president out and replace them with someone else?
They would have to go through a Senate confirmation, but yeah, you can.
Damn. Do you think that would happen?
No.
No. Okay.
Joe's gonna dump a black woman? Are you crazy? No. That's not happening.
Okay. I read the article and I was like, that seems real fucked up. I mean, and again, I fucking don't really like Kamala, but I think that she might do a better job than our current president.
Well,
It seems like she's just
I don't think it
enjoying
would be
herself.
that hard. I can
don't
do a
think
better
she's
job than our
perceiving
president.
herself to be
Gretchen, you could do a better job than most of our presidents. That's not a fair
That's true.
statement.
True.
You're not at like Jason Beck could do a better job.
Well, let's not. I wouldn't go that far.
Then Biden, come on, he would be way more fun at least.
All right, I think we've beaten this to death. We all know Joe sucks. I'm so excited that
I feel like Jason really
hosting.
missed his window. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Like to be able to be here and have this.
He never misses his window.
That's true.
I mean, I never have to wonder what Jason is thinking.
All right, our next story is coming from everyone's favorite cannabis business consultant, industry veteran, bullshit buster, and general data bitch. Over 13 years in the regulated market, but deep roots in the legacy of the industry. We have Nichole West, who can actually get up on time and show up, unlike anyone with a penis.
So fresh and so clean too. I also would like to show you my new shirt. I just accepted the COO position at Butter. It's the first time that I've ever been given the C title. I've always been the vice to some dumbass president. So pretty fucking excited.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super excited. So my headline today is actually coming out of Ireland, which I would like to just a little backstory. Right out of college, I went backpacking through Europe, and one of the first places I went was Ireland, and I stayed in Dublin for almost 2 months. I absolutely fell in love with the culture, the place, the people, the greenery. It is insanely beautiful, but boy, was it hard for me to score some weed. I actually got a friend at a bar that I gave money to, 200 quid or 200 euro, and he took said money and took a train to a cab or to a train to a bus to a cab to get to somebody's house on the other side of the country to sleep on a floor to bring me $200 worth of weed. And on day 3, I was relatively certain that my weed had been stolen and my money had been stolen, and I'm sitting in the bar and this gentleman walks in, and it was like heavens opened up for me in Ireland, and I got a bag of weed. And I will say that the next bag of weed I purchased was actually from a cop. So the 2 purchases that I made in Ireland were the 2 most drastically different purchases. I bought a brick of hash from a cop, and I bought a bunch of weed from a dude who had to go on a magical journey across the country to get this weed. So
Was he a leprechaun?
I didn't want to say that, but he was really small, and I was like super excited about it. And I was trying so hard to not call him a leprechaun because I'm like, that's racist. And so I didn't. But
is it racist? They're not real.
I don't know. I think it might be.
They're not real.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like they might be. And I struggled with that. And I didn't really know the cultural line on their opinions of leprechauns. So I didn't want to be offensive in the moment that this person had gone on the greatest journey of their life for me for a bag of weed.
I don't think that anybody really likes to be identified with a very short magical man. I mean, that probably isn't bringing out his best traits. Like, you remind me of a leprechaun. It's just never something I end up saying to a guy in a bar,
No, but the Fresh Move are reforming Ireland's cannabis laws and welcoming its first step. So after a decade of limited progress on drug policy in Ireland, the discussion around decriminalization of cannabis is welcomed by consumers. A new bill to decriminalize the possession of cannabis for personal use is due to be put before Irish Dáil or the Parliament in the coming weeks. The movement being brought forward by the People Before Profit Party, which is led by Dublin Midwest TD Gino Kenny, will mark the first time in 10 years that a bill has sought to overhaul the Misuse of Drugs Act in 1977. The bill will see an amendment of the act to decriminalize personal use for cannabis of up to 7 grams of flower or 2.5 grams of resin. Mr. Kenny, a prominent advocate for the liberal cannabis laws, told Irish news outlet in the Journal the bill was a stepping stone towards a fully regulated market. Kenny put on his Twitter, very soon People Before Profit will bring forward an amendment to the misuse of drugs legislation. The Cannabis Regulation Bill 22 will decriminalize cannabis for personal use. It will be the first time in 10 years that a bill seeks to amend the progressively MUDA. Time for change. However, as a party, it has its oppositions. The bill is unlikely to pass without the support of the sitting government. Natalie O'Regan, a legal researcher and drug policy advocate in Ireland, welcomed the bill, but was wary that the main political parties might not be as keen for the reform. The introduction of the bill is a welcome step in the cannabis reform to Ireland, which has remained stale for the last number of years. Although it does not address many other issues, such as the cultivation or sale of cannabis, removing the criminalization of cannabis for consumers is the first and important step to a much larger issue, she commented. While government TD may express support for the reform personally, it is not the stance of the parties themselves, so TD may have no other option but to vote against this bill, even though they may personally believe that it's the right approach to take. However, even if the bill doesn't pass, it will offer the opportunity for an open conversation on the criminalization of cannabis to consumers in the dial, says Ms. O'Regan. With reforms that are proposed and reforms in many other countries, this is no longer the issue of the government that the government can ignore. With Gino introducing this bill, it is a chance for us and the public to see politicians and the opinions, many of which have shied away from the past cannabis years. Serious moves towards decriminalization are happening, and a citizens' assembly on drugs is also expected next year, which could see some serious moves towards decriminalization. According to Peter Reynolds, founder of Clear, an Ireland representative of the Cannabis Industry Council, upon entering the government in 2020, the 3 coalition parties committed to holding citizens' assembly on drug use, which advocates believe could present the opportunity to reform drug policy in Ireland. Earlier this month, the Irish Examiner reported that a government task force set up to look at mental health and addiction within the criminal justice system had recommended those found in possession of certain drugs should not be prosecuted. Referring to the article, Mr. Reynolds commented, "This indicates a settled intention to move the decriminalization of all drugs, which is very welcome. I expect the Citizens' Assembly, which is supposed to take place in 2023, to accelerate this action." So addressing patient access is one of the most important pieces. All of these moves are likely to be welcomed by patients, many of whom are still not able to access medical cannabis legally due to various barriers. The Irish Medical Cannabis Access Program, or the MCAP, went underway in 2021, but currently only offers access to limited products for people living with one of 3 qualifying conditions. These include intractable nausea and vomiting associated with chemotherapy, severe treatment-resistant epilepsy, and spasticity associated with multiple sclerosis. Many have cited that in fact, chronic pain is not included, and the program has over 1.5 million people in Ireland are thought to live with some form of clinical severe pain. Amy Brown, an endometriosis patient who is in the cannabis, uses cannabis to manage her symptoms, said Mr. Kenny's bill would remove the fear that she's facing for all of those currently risking criminalization in order to medicate their medical conditions. It's a positive step for patients who don't fit the MCAP or mistrail license group criteria. At least they won't have to have the constant dread and fear of being arrested and criminalized for their medicine. So one of the biggest concerns moving forward is going to obviously be consumer safety, as that is in any market, and especially as we go towards regulation. The proposed model would not tackle the need for safe and regulated product to be more widely available to patients. Accessing safe, quality assured cannabis is still going to be an uncertain and unreliable process in the interim, said Ms. Brown. However, Mr. Kenny's bill is received well, and it could open the door for a wider reform, such as to grow your own model, which many patient advocates have called for. Ms. O'Regan added, it will be interesting to see the political reaction and opinions to this bill, as it may inform us more in regards to how far this issue can actually be pushed. If this is received well, then there is no reason why other reforms cannot be brought in, such as Grow Your Own, which will address a lot of patients' concern. So currently, 3 in 5 Scots support a more liberal cannabis law. Germany's plan for cannabis legalization is happening as we speak. U.S. Congresswoman has been speaking out about how cannabis has helped her depression. President Biden did make a move towards cannabis reform in some way, and currently Germany is having an official plan for cannabis legalization, and they're considering that a victory for consumers. So around the world, countries that are regularly influencing Ireland and the political decisions they make are making moves to legalize and decriminalize cannabis. I really think that until we deschedule or bust here in America, we will have a continuous world problem. I do think deschedulization here on U.S. soil will make a huge difference to countries like Ireland and their ability to push this agenda forward. I'm super interested to hear what the ladies have to say. And sorry again, nobody on Clubhouse, but you've got some comments in the chat. We will bring those up as well. And I'm Nichole West, getting high at 9 with y'all.
Yeah,
Well,
I just
I think
don't
this-
understand how come you can't get these meds for everything that we can get. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing how heavy duty this prohibition is, and that they're so limited on what they allow people to use marijuana for particular treatments. You know, I don't know how we could be this effective at prohibiting a drug nowadays, because people could just go and learn about the safety and efficacy of it. It'd be very hard to limit the use of a new drug the way that this particular drug has been so incredibly limited.
I think that this is a great first step for Ireland. I mean, you got to start somewhere. And if they want to be the leaders in this, especially in their part of the world, we all know that, you know, Great Britain is no big fan of cannabis. I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, especially with them being such a close next door neighbor. I would love to go lobby in Ireland. I think that would be a lot more fun than Washington. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it'll be a great thing. I hope that this goes through.
Gretchen, you would be a hit in Ireland lobby committee because you have so much knowledge. You're so passionate. You're so well spoken. And that red hair would walk you right in and they would be like, welcome. They would
Well, I don't know how much they would love my Scottish roots, but whatever.
Well,
I won't mention that part.
You know, it's interesting.
We'll just keep that to ourselves.
It's interesting because I didn't realize how much beef there actually was between Ireland and Scotland until I was there. And also I really learned to understand the difference in the dialect when I didn't go to Ireland and like really immerse myself. I kind of thought like Irish and Scottish kind of always sounded the same. And now that I've been and really listened to both, I'm like, those are like so different. It's insane. It's like when you know a set of twins and before you know them, you think they look alike, and then you get to know them and you're like, no, they're two completely different people. I can spot them. I feel that way about Scottish and Irish now. But I think coming from America, there's some really interesting interactions that I had in Ireland when I was traveling in Ireland. It was George Bush was still our president, and they had a lot of fucking opinions about American politics, and it was so.
They always
funny.
do.
Yeah, it was so funny because everyone would just be like, it was like an icebreaker question. Did you vote for him? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like that's how you start a question at your interaction, like. And at the time, I don't think I was even old enough to have voted for the prior president because I just turned 22. So it was like I was right outside of the window to have voted for the last presidency, and I was getting ready to vote for the next presidency. But yeah, it was interesting to see how much Ireland cared about America's politics, like a lot.
Yeah, everywhere. I was first over there a few years ago. And the first question out of everyone was like, really, Donald Trump? And I was like, seriously, Boris Johnson? I'm like, here, people, don't give me shit. I'm like, that's how you're going to welcome me to your country? All right, fine. Let's do this.
Can you get weed in England? What's going on in England?
England, it's not even decriminalized over there, is it? No, they're still having a lot of trouble. There are folks from Parliament who keep bringing up things. But all we keep seeing are stories one after the other about, major arrests and them trying to get rid of stuff. CBD has some presence there, but that's the only thing that they have going on.
So it's still a Class A drug crime, included an unlimited fine and up to 7 years in prison. Suppliers and producers can be sentenced to life in prison, and sentenced for a Class B drug fine of possessions up to 5 years, or potentially 14 years for supply or production. So they can still give you life for growing weed in the UK currently, and possession can get you 5 years. But they do have some CBD regulations. I know that there's some import of.
Where does a girl go if she wants to go on vacation and still enjoy getting high on really great weed? Besides
California.
Yeah. Is there another country?
I mean, Amsterdam's been the leader in like cannabis tourism for so long, but their weed is only okay because their market is still fairly criminalized as far as the cultivation of it. So it's still being grown in like weird fucking places. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And so
what about Malta? I know that they were making moves, and Malta's beautiful.
Malta is beautiful. So Malta does have a medical program right now. There's a decent amount of corruption happening. Surprise, surprise. Malta was, just kind of stopped being the country that everybody was laundering all of their money. They did recently change a couple international money laws to kind of stop that in Malta. I don't know how much it's actually stopping it, but the corruption in Malta got real quick. So the medical program, I do believe they have a lot of grows going in, but I don't think that it's yet a vacation spot. I know obviously Thailand, they're trying really hard on Thailand.
Well, and there's also Portugal where everything's legal.
Yes.
But how is the product in Portugal? Do we know?
It's not good weed. It's not good weed.
Because I know a number of American companies who have gone over there and have started setting up operations for them to expand into Europe.
Out of Portugal.
Yes.
I mean, it could be worse, Portugal's got so much shoreline. That might end up being fun.
I mean, real life, Dr. Mary, go to Jamaica.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't
Go
it?
to Jamaica. It's a beautiful place. You can have beautiful beaches. You can have amazing culture, great food, lots of fresh fruit. And they've been growing weed and doing their best of growing weed the way that God intended, the way that Jah intended for so long. It's, the terps are there. I definitely think the aesthetics are a little off on a lot of the weed in.
That's the thing. The aesthetics are off. Yeah. If you want to check all the boxes, like great 4-star experience, nice entertainment, fantastic food, great weed, but there are like some really wonderful resorts, I think, in the Caribbean, and then you can enjoy a lot of that at once.
Yeah. Oh, we've made it to the halfway point. Let's definitely hop to our commercial. We made it. We'll be right back.
You want to grow some of the best weed in the world? Then you must start with the best genetics in the world. Go to www.dnagenetics.shop to order regular, feminized, or autoflower beans. All of your favorite DNA genetics cultivars such as Kosher Kush, Skywalker Kush, and oh yeah, Chocolate Truffle Shuffle. Boasting more cannabis awards for their award-winning genetics than any other company in the world. Remember to go to www.dnagenetics.shop to see why our terps don't lie.
Well, somehow Jason Beck still made it into our heads this morning with that. So I'll go ahead and hop to our disclaimer. The thoughts and opinions and general shade thrown on the High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers, not those of any other speaker or its followers. Statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice. Their speakers make no representation regarding the legal status of any country, substance, area, territory, or its authority. The views expressed in this room do not establish fiduciary relationships. Our sponsors do not imply, constitute the endorsement by us, or expression of any opinion whatsoever or any speaker on stage. If you're an easily offended person, this show's probably not for you. Also, maybe you should sleep in at Vegas and not show up today. Oh, and we've got another commercial. Let's see. LAXCC. Flying into LAX, you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX, located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard. Open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. Always makes LAXCC your first stop when you touch down in LA and score like a winner. And don't forget to mention hi at 9 and get 10% off for your full order. Ring, that was a commercial. And then,
did you guys see all the great comments over in the comment section? Somebody just put Resort Westmoreland as the place to go in Jamaica.
ooh, that sounds beautiful.
Sounds reasonably nice. It sounds kind of snotty. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Well, Dr. Mary is an integrative medicine internist and a 2-time best-selling author, the CEO of Balanced Medicinals. Dr. Mary joins us today from Vegas, actually. She woke up today, too. Let's hear it for the girls.
I stay on East Coast time, and a lot of my telemedicine companies expect me to be, I have like a responsibility to show up between 9 and 11:30 Monday through Friday. That's like my one set in stone. But that ends up being like 6 to 8:30 out here. And so I end up coming home, and then my alarm goes off at 6, and I don't want to like move all of those people, so I just get up at 6 and work. So but then at about 8 o'clock at night out here, I'm like, boy, is it getting late, because I'm back on my East Coast time. So but I have a really great article that's actually going viral, and I wouldn't be surprised if half of the 5 people that are watching us right now have already seen the article. But it's about marijuana being harmful to your lungs, more harmful than cigarettes. And this was published in the USA Today. This new study suggests it might be. This is a small study, they all are, but it looked at CT scans, chest scans from 56 marijuana smokers, 33 tobacco-only smokers, and 57 non-smokers in Canada over a 15-year period from 2005 to 2020. So altogether, 56 plus 57 plus 33. Is anybody a great mathematician? That's far less than 150 scans altogether reviewed, which seems a little small to me, because I think if you were going to run a study like this, why not just pull 4,000 scans and then look at non-smokers, marijuana smokers, cigarette smokers, separate out the people who are smoking both cigarettes and marijuana. So this, so anyway, this is a small study, but I suppose it's a start. We'll call it a Joe Biden study on lung disease and cannabis. But it says that researchers found emphysema to be more common in marijuana smokers than those who don't smoke at all, and more common in marijuana smokers who were 50 years and older than those who were just tobacco smokers. They found a certain subtype of emphysema in marijuana smokers that affected the outermost parts of the lung called paraseptal emphysema, which is more common in marijuana smokers compared to tobacco-only smokers. And I think that's interesting. That may have something to do with the barotrauma, because marijuana smokers have been taught their whole life to inhale and hold the inhalation so that the cannabinoids will drop out of the smoke, and then you'll get higher. But but going ahead and taking that deep breath and holding it really doesn't get you any higher. There's 2 good studies that support that. But it does lead to increased pressure-related trauma in the lungs. Your lungs are really designed to inhale and exhale. They're not designed to inhale a big deep breath and hold it for a really long time. So people are probably traumatizing their lungs, and that may be how you're seeing this intraseptal emphysema, this different pattern compared to somebody who's smoking a cigarette and they're inhaling and exhaling in a more normal way. But it's such a small study, I don't think you can make any conclusions from it in terms of what might be happening, other than that, smoke is smoke. And you're gonna, if you're smoking, there is going to be some potential to damage your lungs. Although with cannabinoids around, those are also anti-inflammatory. So the argument has been, in the population-based data, we don't see a higher level of emphysema in cannabis smokers. And we're always like, well, why are cannabis smokers not having emphysema? And it might be because this, because of the anti-inflammatory cannabinoids. And that's my story. Dr. Mary Clifton coming to you from Vegas up here, awake, but still ensconced in my bed.
Dr. Mary, who did the study?
Yeah, I saw that somebody was asking who actually funded the study. It was done in Ottawa, in Canada, and I don't know if it's government funded or I was just looking through the study. I hadn't thought about checking funding.
Well, and another thing I was wondering, when they pulled these records, were they people who smoke cannabis only, never tobacco in their life? Is there any stipulation on that?
No, they didn't stipulate that. They stipulated just tobacco smoking only, or people who admitted to cannabis. And then again, you still have the issue of people who admitted to cannabis in between 2005 and 2020, when it was still illegal. You probably are still mixing a lot of people who are using cannabis in with your normals that don't smoke, or your people that just smoke tobacco, because they're doing it. They're just not telling you they're doing it.
So from my own personal research, as somebody who, when I was in college, I worked for a cigar lounge. Straight out of college, I worked for RJ Reynolds. I designed marketing for Camel cigarettes. And my grandfather started dying in front of me from cancer that was caused by asbestos and tobacco. So I had like a mental breakthrough when I was like, I can't keep doing this. I eventually found my way to the cannabis industry after a few other failures in my life of thinking that I could do things that I wasn't meant to do. Cannabis was the thing I was supposed to be doing. But I was a very long time blunt smoker because of my tobacco background. I very strongly loved quality tobacco, and like I was good at deciphering between garbage tobacco. I mean, there's a huge difference. Like it's more vast than the weed world of the difference between what tobacco is and what shitty tobacco is, because shitty tobacco can get away with a ton of awful, nasty chemicals and things and processing and all this stuff. So like crappy tobacco, even regulated crappy tobacco, is so bad compared to like a high-end Cuban cigar that has been properly cured in all the right temperatures and the plume and everything's perfect, right? So I had like a bit of a thing in my mind where I was like, oh, I'm just going to smoke the good tobacco and I'm going to keep smoking blunts because I love them. 2 different times throughout my adult life, I've quit smoking blunts. Once was very recently, and once was about 4 years ago. I take tolerance breaks almost every year, but completely quit smoking tobacco. About 4 years ago, I had this effect, but not as much. This time, just by removing the tobacco from my routines, I started coughing all this shit up. Like the expectorant factor of the cannabis has been so amazing, but like I was obviously holding a lot of this shit down, and I think cannabis was helping me keep it in there. And then as soon as I stopped smoking the tobacco, it was my cannabis was using it as an expectorant and just really cleaning my lungs out. And so every time that I've removed tobacco from it, my body immediately just starts kicking all of this schmutz out of my lungs. Like, I mean, and it's not an infection or an illness because it's not green or yellow. It's black. It's like, it's the tar. It's the shit that like my body's just been holding on to. And
it's, I mean, I've worked with so many people when they're quitting smoking, and the smoke, I believe of any type disables the cilia, and the cilia are naturally and always sweeping the lungs and cleaning them up. So you might have a little cough where you're coughing stuff up. It's a natural process, but the cilia get paralyzed with the smoke. And then when you stop smoking for 10 days, the cilia wake up, and then people get a cough, and they're like, I've been smoking for, 10 years and I've never had a cough. And now I quit smoking and I can't stop coughing. And it'll go on for like 6 weeks, and they're just coughing up. Their lungs are doing this, thanks for the break. And they're just cleaning up,
Yeah, no. And I fully believe on my personal level, like I know it's just anecdotal, but as somebody who not only worked in tobacco and consumed it on like a quality level and works in cannabis and consumes it on a quality level, removing tobacco from my routine drastically changed my lung capacity. And I still smoke just as much weed. I'm just doing it in papers or bombs.
I mean, there's even a patent and some research being done on how to add hemp to cigarette smoke to reduce the inflammation. So it's a great addition to be smoking weed rather than smoking tobacco. It's so much less inflammatory. And people in the comments who are talking about vaporizing, even better, to reduce the number of carcinogens that you're exposed to when you vaporize and get the cannabinoids without actually igniting the weed. But how do you guys feel about that? Because so many people say that the flavor just isn't there and that they don't like the experience of a dryer vaporizer.
I love a dryer vape, but it's not as convenient for me. The ability to like go through all the things. I know they're making different items like the pucks and this kind of shit, but like I'll just roll up a bunch of joints and I'll have a bunch of joints, and that's easier for me to have than like sitting on the side of the road trying to grind up my weed and pack it into my little vaporizer. So like I think the convenience factor of vaporizers becoming something more easy to use is changing that a lot. But I mean, there was a certain point in time where you had the box with the little whip or you had the giant volcano, and those were your only options. And it's like, if you're not sitting, and the volcanoes were $600. So it's like, I can't afford that. I couldn't afford that for a very long time. And so the idea of purchasing the thing that's good for you, I couldn't afford.
Well, now, I don't know if I don't know if I'm the right person to ask because I don't smoke.
Right.
But I have tried all these things. And I've worked with vape companies. And I think it's also important that we take a look at Europe. I mean, Europe are huge vapors because they use it a great deal for the cessation of smoking. So they absolutely see the value in it, and they appreciate the flavors that they're getting. And from working with the companies that I know, as long as you are using quality products, you're vaping at the correct temperature, you're going to get a good experience from it. And so I think people should not be, quick to dump all over vaping.
What's the temperature? I mean, can you talk about that a little bit more? Like if you're vaping it, how do you know what the correct temperature is?
Well, you need a good, knowledgeable person to help you because the different oils, every material has different temps that you should be going at. So you really need to educate yourself to really understand what's the best temp for what you're using.
So when you're using a product like a oil vaporizer versus an herb vaporizer, you'll have a very different temperature that you need.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. I mean,
a lot of these devices now will have like a interchanging piece, right? So you can do oil or flour in that product. So when you're looking at getting a good vape, you're looking between 320 and all the way up to 450. And once you get up to that 450 is when you start to get a little bit of a popcorn taste. That's what everyone kind of describes it. And then when we're dealing with taking, concentrates, I think a lot of people are realizing you're having two different variables. Terpenes have a much lower volatility point than a lot of these cannabinoids. So like the terpenes that a lot of people want to taste are much lower. And so when you're vaporizing for flavor and to get those terps, a lot of times you're not fully activating the cannabinoids and getting to that point. And so I always tell people when I'm doing vape, I do the first for the taste and the second for the face. So I do a first one really low temperature so I can taste it and really enjoy that experience and know what the product tastes like. And then I turn that shit way up so I don't waste anything and get that popcorn.
That's a good idea. Have you guys been just absolutely loving all of the new weed that you're seeing out here in Vegas? I talked to a guy last night that it's the most beautiful bud. It's absolutely gorgeous, just light green and covered with white frost. And it's a you're going to hate me because I'm not going to be able to tell you what it is, but it was a cross between Chemdog and something else. But the smell was unbelievable. It was the best smell I've ever smelled.
I think you've been missing out, Dr. Mary, living in New York.
More, but like actual beautiful flowers, like the Bellagio gardens. I mean, that's the best smell I've ever smelled. But in terms of weed, that was a beautiful new weed. I can't believe all these great new strains.
I want to walk around with Dr. Mary and watch her discover a lot of these things too, because your joy is just, I feel it. Like, I'm not as excited about the strains, but I just love your joy on this. But thank you so much for this story, Dr. Mary, and everyone in the comments for this. I think I want to keep following this. I know you've been kind of helping, drop the breadcrumbs for us as this stuff evolves, and please keep keeping us informed on this, because your insight on this is so important for us. Today, Gretchen's going to cover Beck's story. He did have it together enough to steal the best article for the day at 6:00 last night, but he wasn't up this morning. So Gretchen, can you tell us what Jason was going to cover today?
Sure. Jason's headline, which should have been mine, but whatever, is coming from Benzinga. Historic breakthrough. First time ever Congress will send cannabis bill to Biden's desk. On Wednesday, the Senate passed the Medical Marijuana and Cannabidiol Research Expansion Act, marking the first time ever that a standalone piece of cannabis reform legislation will be sent to President Joe Biden's desk. Prior to the voice vote, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said on the floor that he is continuing productive talks about broader cannabis reforms he hopes to pass before the end of the lame duck session. The research bill was introduced by Senators Dianne Feinstein, Chuck Grassley, and Brian Schatz. The goal of the bill, which passed the House of Representatives in July by a comfortable bipartisan vote of 325 to 95 under the leadership of Representatives Earl Blumenauer and Andy Harris, is to facilitate research on cannabis and its potential health benefits. The bill will accomplish this by streamlining the application process for scientific marijuana studies and removing existing barriers for researchers that have stalled the research process for decades. After working on the issue of cannabis reform for decades, finally the dam is starting to break. The passage of my Medical Marijuana and Cannabidiol Research Expansion Act in the House and Senate represents a historic breakthrough in addressing the federal government's failed and misguided prohibition on cannabis, according to Earl Blumenauer. Feinstein noted that the bill will make it easier to study how these medications can treat various conditions, resulting in more patients being able to easily access safe medications. We know that cannabidiol-derived medications can be effective for conditions like epilepsy. This bill will help refine current medical CBD practices and develop important new applications. After years of negotiation, I'm delighted that we are finally enacting this bill that will result in critical research that could help millions. And Grassley said he was grateful for the bipartisan bill and that it's now on the way to the president's desk. Since 2015, I've pushed to expand medical research into marijuana derivatives such as cannabidiol to help understand their benefits and potential harms. Schatz also joined the delighted chorus, and he said our bill, which is now set to become law, will remove excessive barriers that make it difficult for researchers to study the effectiveness and safety of marijuana and hopefully give patients more treatment options. How do I feel about this? Again, wonderful day that this is going to the president's desk, especially that it's sponsored by two of President Biden's besties and fellow octogenarians. I think that he will definitely sign this. But I also think that this also demonstrates to us what Congress is willing to do, which is not very much. But they are willing to pass a piece of legislation that in theory will help with research. And from what I understand, I believe it'll help a little bit with red tape. Dr. Mary, I'm sure you've dealt with this sort of thing, trying to do research and find things out. So this is a good first baby step. But it's a good thing that it's happening. But this just really sets the tone. This is what Congress is willing to do. Biden will sign off on this because it's research. He will not sign off on something greater. This is Gretchen for Hyatt 9 News.
You're 100% right in the evaluation of it. I did love the comment from Cannabis Saves the World. There are over 11,000 studies on PubMed of cannabinoids. This is such BS. And it's so true that we don't have to worry about safety. We have to worry about changing public perception and educating people about safety, about how safe it is. And, the research, the very next piece of research that needs to be done is driving studies so that we can show that it's safe to drive on this and that everybody just needs to lay off on trying to identify the driver who's been using this, because it just doesn't The initial studies don't support that tax driving at all.
I like a comment from Weed for Warriors from Sean. Schedule 1 license researcher response this morning. Quote, "This bill is as worthless as all the others. This is like Biden's pardon."
Yeah, I definitely, today's National Premature Day, and I think they meant babies, but I feel like they actually meant ejaculation, and this is the government just prematurely existing in their hopes and their, oh, this is so great. Yes, there's so much research. The idea that this almost scares me in some ways, because Gretchen and I kind of go back and forth a lot about where you're right. You remind me, like, we need people to understand the medical value. We need people to understand how much this is helping people. But in that same breath and vein, I get so scared if they fully understand the medical value prior to us descheduling, because I'm afraid that medical value will be stripped from our ability to use as people that have been pushing this industry for products and development. And so I'm excited when I hear research, but I'm also like, ooh, can we just use Israel's research? Because every time I let the government do stuff and do research, it goes really bad, and they're going to take it from us. So like this,
and then start dividing it up into pieces and patenting different products, and then making it a total pharmaceutical. Yeah, but I think they're already there. I mean, they're already way ahead of us in doing those types of things. I mean, they're trying to figure out how to monetize it. Because I mean, over and over again on my TikTok, people say, you know, I got rid of 9 medicines. I got off 5 medicines. You know, I stopped my opioids. And the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want to hear any of that. No. They don't want to hear any of that.
I'm worried for the amount of people that are going to not be. Oh, so someone just asked us about Clubhouse. Sorry, we don't have Clubhouse today. We don't have any of the boys to run the Roadcaster. So girls for the win. But yeah, no, I get really worried when we think about them isolating and taking the cannabinoids and the ability to use them from us. And so like this kind of shit, I'm just like, I hope we deschedule before they figure any of this shit out.
Well, at the speed that it's going, they probably will. I mean, it takes so long to get anything done.
But I definitely, I want to also say, I agree really big time with Gretchen's continuous backing on, we need to figure out what drug driving looks like to be able to just show them and be like, this is it. And like, so that needs to be figured out. And I don't care. And I'm glad Jason's not here, because there is a thing as being too high to drive. I'm sorry. There is. I smoke a gang of weed, and it's usually not when I smoke, it's when I eat edibles that I'm like, I'm not safe to drive. And I know that. And I will say that, you know, I should not be driving. And I need to understand where that threshold is too. Like with alcohol, you can tell me 0.08 alcohol content is my number. And I'm like, okay, where do I get? And a friend of mine had a breathalyzer. And so we've done the like 1 beer. This is where I'm at. And like that real experience is very valuable for you to understand what that actually looks like. I want to know what 0.08 alcohol looks like. How do I feel? How do I feel at 0.08? And I've done that. And I know that. And I grasp that. And so at my body type and my body weight, it was 1.5 strong beers or 2 light beers gave me the blood alcohol with a regular diet in my body to be able to fail the breathalyzer.
You know what would be a great app is like a video game, or if you could do it on your phone, or if you could do it somehow in that simulates driving, and you could take whatever product it is you take, whether it's your fentanyl for your back pain, or if it's your cannabis for your back pain, or if it's your amitriptyline for your depression, all of these different sedating drugs, and then drive the car, or do the tools that you need to do to drive the car, and then you could see how it affects you. You know, that would be, I mean, we need the more formal research to prove that it's not a problem. But then if an individual could do that, they could be like, well, it only affects 10% of people, but I'm one of those 10%, and I can't drive my car after I've been using products, you know.
There's actually some really interesting research about stomach flora, your gut flora, and the way that your body actually digests certain things. And they're doing this research, and if they're able to prove these theories, it could be some of the more interesting research since blood type, for us to understand the balance of our gut flora and how that actually responds.
Oh yeah, gut flora is the whole story. Yeah.
And we're
And,
born
and
with
you
this
know, gut flora is like it's shorthand for a healthy vegan diet. I mean, the way to healthy gut flora is alkalinized, you know, is to have an alkaline gut. So and if you eat a lot of meat and dairy, you have to pour a lot of acid in there, and it spends a lot of time in a high acid environment to break down all those meat, as opposed to breaking down like a whole grain or a bean is much, much simpler for your system. And then your gut stays a lot less acidic for a lot longer, and then healthy bacteria grow in a more alkaline environment. So yeah, if you want to have a healthy gut, it's just vegan proteins.
And to reply to Dana's comment, she said that blood alcohol doesn't work that way. I know that, and we do know that. We're trying to figure out what is that metric, and that's all I'm saying is we don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need somebody to come up with something that like stoners and doctors and politicians can all grasp and at least stand behind and be like, okay. And then you'll understand where you're at if you're over and what that looks like. They have to have a number for it in order for us to get to the full DC. I know that. I 100% agree with you, Gretchen. If we don't have a metric to be like, this is what being fucked up looks like, we're not going to get the ability to have it at free reign. We just won't. It will have to go to a doctor. And then at that point, it'll be like, oh, it's your pharmaceutical. And the pharmaceutical says, don't drive at all. You know, like don't drive or operate heavy machinery, and they find you behind the wheel. They're like, yeah, it said to not do that. You know, like
it's also so important. I mean, it's also important to the legislation, because pieces of legislation say this doesn't move forward until we have this figured out. So we can jump up and down as much as we want about deschedule or bust. And, you know, President Biden can go to hell and it's frozen over, and, you know, holy shit, wait, we don't know how to test for this yet. Still not going to happen. That's
go to hell and it's frozen over.
I love this. Somebody mentioned, who was it? Malik Cooper, the hi, how are you? You know, how high are you? That's if you guys haven't seen that YouTube video of the Canadian cop pulling somebody over. Well, they were just hotboxing the car basically on the side of the road. So
I love it.
Like pizzas is cut into triangles.
So as it turns out, the three of us can be just as entertaining as three of us and four boys. So we got this shit covered. Thank you, ladies, for showing up this morning. I am so glad that it wasn't just me. I was up in the morning like, oh my God, am I going to be by myself? So you two made my morning. I love everyone for tuning in. I also love Jason for sleeping in today because I think this was fun. So thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily, and everyone that transitioned over here from Clubhouse today. Super sorry we didn't make it on. Thank you to the haters for still talking about us, and whoever it was that gave Jason those extra shots at 3 a.m. Huge thank you to LAXCC, True Classic, and DNA Genetics for helping us keep the lights on, to our correspondents for being amazing, to women for showing up today, and thank you to Cannabis for giving us a reason to do this, 3 is 4, and Jaja Simone for helping us in the back end, and thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. Good luck out there if you're in Vegas.
You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nichole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.